Well, welcome to another show of Muckraker, a positive conversation about the things going on in the world. We are focusing our efforts on life, liberty, and hope, and we are really excited about our conversation today. Today, we're going to really be focusing on the idea of education in America. We're talking about public school education, we're talking about homeschool education, and some of the other alternatives that are out there for our children. And so today, Justin is going to lead us off. We've got a special guest. Justin, why don't you go ahead and tell us all about your special guest.
Is Angela Daniel?
I'm just happy to be here. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. This is a topic I'm very passionate about education. I'm very passionate about how all the children in America are educated. So I'm really just looking forward to the discussion. Awesome. And I'm looking forward to my rally on Saturday, which we'll talk about.
There you go. Yes, We'll talk about that at the end. So today we're going to be talking about education. There is a lot to unpack here. What we've decided to talk about is what the COVID-19 the entire COVID-19 situation is uncovered with the education system. So a lot to unpack, like I said. And let's start off with what education is. Let's differentiate education from training, and then how is the education system being utilized for propaganda in some cases.
No way. What are you talking about? So not in America. That's third world country stuff, isn't it?
Right? You would think so. So education is, from my perspective, is trying to teach people or teach children, people, whatever, how to think. Not what to think, but how to think. So you present facts to children, and then you identify how these facts relate, and then you let the children or your students actually determine from their own experience what those facts mean. In some cases, what's happening, which is propaganda, is a teacher will throw out some facts. That teacher will have his or her own opinion, and then throw opinions at the students. And let me tell you something about education. Education is incredibly important for kids. So when kids are growing up, what you're doing is you're actually programming them, right? So I'm a software engineer. I do programming. And what happens when I have a new system? It doesn't have anything. It doesn't know anything, doesn't know how to do anything. So what I have to do is I have to actually program it. I have to tell it what to do. So I actually input the facts, and I sit there and say, okay, this is what you're doing. Now, same thing with kids. The area that you're teaching, they have no code written. Right, nothing's there. So you're actually putting all that logic in there. You're putting all the information in there. You're effectively telling them what needs to be done, and then they need to actually articulate how to get it done. But so they can take their own analysis, their own analytical skills, and come up with the correct answer, or the answer of their belief. And the reason I say that is because
I love that you brought up logic.
Yeah.
I think that is so fundamental. I had a college professor when I was in my late teens that was a philosophy professor, and he said, I don't understand why we don't teach logic, like from the age of 5, because that's how you recognize propaganda.
Right.
And that's all we're surrounded by now. And in our household, the focus from the very earliest educational ages is logic and then reading. Right. And we just keep pushing those. Of course, the other subjects are important too. But if you are able to think rationally and logically and recognize propaganda when you see it, and read lots of different words and understand how things are presented to you, you can do anything with your life. That's the foundation of education. And that is something that is just not focused on in the public schools at all.
That's right.
I think there's a reason for that. I mean, I don't want to sound like some kind of conspiracy theorist, but I do not think they want logical people. I do not think they want these people to be able to do anything except function inside whatever factory job or whatever small little area of the world that they will be.
Yeah, and I think there's no doubt. I think there are definitely those teachers who believe in that and do that. But at the same time, I want all our listeners to know that we have the highest respect for teachers and those who
I'm not talking about the teachers. I think this is much more insidious than that.
There is a programmatic attempt throughout the country, through our governmental agencies.
Absolutely. I have highest respect for teachers, and I know many of them are out there doing the best they can with some fairly poor resources.
They're challenged. And, one of the things that I personally try to do is I try to encourage the teaching apparatus.
Right.
I've got teachers in my family. I have teachers that live in our neighborhoods. I love teachers. I love the idea of education. I spent 10 years in college. And so obviously I find value in education.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between, like you said earlier, educating versus fact training.
Right.
And so,
training. Yep.
yeah, we need to teach our kids today. One, we need to teach them how to analyze problems, and how do you fix issues? How do you think? And that's really a big part that's what we're missing right now.
Let me circle back really quick to both your points on training. So the difference between training and education is a training, what you'll do is you'll have an instrument, a circular saw, something of that nature, jigsaw. So you need to be trained on how that thing used. You need to look at what the trigger button is. You need to know how to place it. You need to know all the safety aspects of it, the whole 9 yards. That's training. It's training for a specific skill. That's what training is for. Education is more than training. It is the idea of analysis. And so to be able to analyze is so critical. And I think both of you hit it. I think our analytical skills are being reduced. Maybe not on purpose, maybe on purpose, I don't know, but seemingly from a parent's perspective, it seems like it.
Yeah.
So,
well, you know me, you know me, Justin. I'm always the hopeful guy.
Yes.
I always want to believe that people are doing things for the right reasons, but at the same time, I'm a realist, and the education system is very different today than it was when I was in school. When I was in school, the priority for education was learning how to write, how to read, how to comprehend the English language, how to communicate, how to be prepared to analytically break down problems in life and accommodate conclusions and solutions. And when I got to college, I would be prepared to do that and figure out what to do.
Well,
go ahead, Angela.
One of the things that they don't teach them logic in school, fine. But one of the things that people have always thought was a great benefit of public school, and people have always said, homeschool mom, are your children being socialized? Well, at least in the past, they got to work together. That working together on the playground, that learning to deal with different disagreements and things in reasonable and logical ways, that's part of learning logic. That's part of learning how to relate to the world. That's something that's not happening now in the public schools at all. It just doesn't happen. They don't have the type of interactions that they need to become, fully functioning adults with healthy relationships. That's what I'm very concerned about some of these kids that are being kept home. Now, in some areas, they've been kept home for over a year, and that's unacceptable.
If you go up to the north, they're still at home.
Yeah.
There's a lot of schools that are still closed up north.
Well, I'd like to take a break. It's about that time.
All right.
So my thought is, let's come back to homeschooling.
And welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us. Right now, we want to kind of change topic a little bit. I'm interested in really figuring out what's going on in the area of virtual learning. We think about virtual learning because when COVID-19 came into play, all of a sudden we got thrown almost overnight into this idea of virtual learning for our students all over our country.
Right.
Most school systems absolutely freaked out because they're not prepared for virtual learning. Now, I've got some good friends and that are even in our family. We got family friends that they're homeschoolers, and it didn't really change their life at all because they were already living a life of virtual learning. And I believe, Angela, you're a homeschool mom, right?
I'm a homeschool mom. We do very little on the computer. We have a keyboarding class that we do on the computer. I'm kind of old-fashioned, but that's the great thing about homeschooling. Everybody can find whatever system works for them. But interesting thing about the public schools virtual learning, and there are private virtual learning curriculums that a lot of people really like, and they're really good. But what the public schools did by having the virtual learning was they allowed the parents, sometimes for the first time, to see exactly the type of information that was being presented to their children.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people, when you look at the 300% increase, I don't think a lot of people were real happy with some of the stuff that they saw.
I would agree with that. So
you were saying a 300% adjustment?
300% adjust. There's 300% more folks that have decided that they were going to go. And this comes out of Epic Times. I don't know if you read that, but those guys, there's they were talking about what the failures are, and essentially
Mm-hmm.
it's that these schools weren't necessarily ready for the virtual learning. They kind of got thrown into it.
Right.
From my understanding, teachers were still going to the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
and then they would set it up, and they would have their computer set up, and then the students would all get all on their computers. But attention span of a kid, I mean, of a
Right.
7-year-old, 6-year-old, it's
Right.
just not there. You'll get
Right.
5 minutes into it, and you can't go into each student. Hey,
Mhm.
Johnny, what do you think about this? Okay, Sarah's turn, and then next thing you know, 6 students in, all of them are off playing with their own toys.
And I think Angela tapped into a very strong truth for the first times in a long time. A lot of parents were seeing exactly what's being taught, and I think that's another reason a lot of them have or are moving towards more of a homeschool environment for their kids. Not only because of the complication of the virtual learning with the public school, but I think now that they're seeing some of the stuff that's being taught, and I'm gonna be honest, I've talked to a lot of teachers, and it's not the teachers wanting to teach a lot of this stuff.
Right.
Okay.
And I always feel like I have a lot of friends who are public school teachers. I'm private school teachers. I come from a long line of people that have been involved in public education. My husband's father was a high school principal for many, many years.
Right.
So I actually got a lot of pushback when I decided 16 years ago I was going to start homeschooling my oldest daughter from my family, because once again, how will you socialize those children? Those children all need to be with their age group.
That was the big
family made.
Right.
And my father-in-law, who was the principal for many years, he is dead now, but 3 or 4 years ago, he told me, "I'm glad you took them out." Because he keeps an eye on.
16 years ago, they said that. Wow. He was saying he was.
Well, 16 years ago, he was fighting the idea of me keeping them home.
Oh, okay.
But 3 or 4 years ago, not too long before his death, he said, you made the right decision. You took him out at a good time, and it's just not what he's. What's really disturbing about some of the things, even with children who have been doing learning at the public schools, not the virtual learning, but literally going to the schools, I've seen a couple of curriculums posted on the internet from some of our local. I think one of them was from Montgomery ISD, but it was a curriculum for like a week for, I believe it was the 7-year-olds, it might have been 6-year-olds age group, but it was all about, they were using the 6-foot social distancing. This was from the end of last year, no, I guess it was from the fall when school started. But 6-foot social distancing. They were making all their math around that.
Right.
They were memorizing a song about germs. And I mean, I can't remember it all, but the whole week, every single subject was nothing but this fear of this invisible. They're little.
So that's the thing.
It's got to be psychological.
That's the thing. It kind of goes back to the whole propaganda deal, right? So the thing is you don't know a whole lot about this virus at that point in time when they were coming in, but the thing is school is school. You need to educate, and what they're doing is they're pushing a message that is scaring kids, and that message is not necessarily teaching kids. Teaching kids would be, what is a virus? How does the virus affect you? And all the different aspects. You can do this as a kid. I mean, I have a 7-year-old, and I teach her this type of stuff all the time, and they get it. But sitting there trying to scare the kids, that's going to live with them for the rest of their lives.
Right. And I've met some children that are absolutely terrified.
Yeah,
I really have.
They're terrified for the rest of their life.
Right. And then you can go a little bit younger than that, and think about how between the ages of like 0 and 5, we are all learning how to read faces.
That's
part of being on the autism spectrum is not being able to
read
do that
faces,
well. But if you never make those neural pathways when your brain is developing, and many people that come from households where people are just not going to take those masks off, they don't want their children around people without masks, those children are going to be very much at a disadvantage in life. They're going to be very damaged psychologically.
Absolutely.
Well, there's no doubt that our children, and we have to remember this, guys, our children are our future.
Yes, exactly.
The children,
all the children, not just ours.
Yeah.
Every child in America has the potential of being the next congressman, senator,
president,
mayor, teacher. And so I find it very important that we focus helping these kids, all of our kids. Obviously, you can tell by my gray hair, my kids are grown. I've got grandkids that are in elementary school now. And I'm going to tell you what, we have got to encourage these kids and the people who are teaching them to prepare them for life.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, our focus here is life, liberty, and hope. Well, we want them to be prepared for life.
Which requires education.
But we moms and dads, we're teaching them to respect the Constitution and the liberty that we have because we live in this country called America. And there's an all-out attack against kids for that. They're removing patriotism from the classroom. And then hope. Now, as a pastor, obviously hope for me is seen in a spiritual place. And we're trying to eradicate that too from the culture.
Right.
And so our children, I think our children are just absolutely under attack in our country.
And I understand too that I love homeschooling. Homeschooling is wonderful. I know there's people that just can't do it. There's people where both parents have to work.
Yeah,
there
exactly.
just is not an option. The kids are not old enough to try and do this on their own and have them look at it in the evening.
Sure.
But if we all, even the people who must keep their children in public school or just want to, maybe they like them on the football team or something, but we all have to take our power back. If you want to keep your kid in the public school, that's wonderful. That's a choice you make. They're your children. But you must pay attention. You've got to be watchful. You've got to say, hey, what are they teaching you? You've got to make those school board meetings. And if you got the time and the inclination, get on the school board. Make sure that you're a squeaky wheel, because the parents that the direction that the children's education is going to go is going to be based on which parents showed up and which parents really had an idea of what they wanted their children to learn.
Let me take one last point before we go to our next break. So what I've noticed in the education system, and back me up if you will, is that school seems to segment each subject out. Segments it so much so that children don't understand the relationships of each of those subjects. Homeschooling, on the other hand, you're able to do what you want to do to teach your kids. And so you can thematically set things up. And then in those themes, you can teach how math is related to science, which is related to English or writing, and then also reading. And then also science does deal with art, and art goes full circles and has everything to do with math. All this stuff is related, and yet, and same thing with music. Music is a very, very, very related to math.
Absolutely, it's the same thing.
Exactly. So the thing is, all this stuff is related, and it seems like from my kids that I've seen go to the public school, everything's so separated that they couldn't figure out how these things related. So we brought them home, just like you did. I'm sure you see it too. They see how it all fits.
Yeah, and they all are different. I mean, they all learn differently. Some things work really well for my daughter that just did not work for my son. And you have that ability to tailor and really get, and also it's just a lot of fun. It's so much fun when you finally see their eyes light up and they finally like, oh, I get it. And you feel like you're a part of that.
Exactly.
And that feels really good too. And there's so many, especially here locally, we have a huge homeschooling community. There are, oh goodness, so many different Facebook play groups, and I'm a member of a co-op, and you could really tell when everybody just left the public school system, because our waiting list has like 20 families on it. And that's unheard of. We've just never had anything like that. Almost all the co-ops are full.
Yep. Well, time for a quick break.
I think so.
And when we get back, let's talk about how can parents get more involved in the community? How can we, together as a community, how can we help the kids in the world of education? All right, y'all didn't leave. Glad you're back. We are going to kind of explore a little bit more. Obviously, homeschooling is an option, and that's why Angela's here to kind of share some of those thoughts with us. But there are those families out there that option just doesn't fit for them. And so if we're going to continue to work with the public school, which I think we need to have public schools, because there are a lot of people that need the public school system, but we need to have the best teachers that we possibly can have, and we need to encourage the teachers, we need to resource the teachers, and we need to focus on making sure that they have every resource they need, because our children matter that much. But what I'd like to do we got these great guys here. What I want to talk about real quick, let's take a look at how can you, as a parent, get more involved with what's going on in the school system, with what's going on in the classroom, because after all, they're your children. And at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to make sure that the people who are teaching your children are doing the right thing. We believe in personal responsibility here. And so let's talk about that. How can we do that? You want to take off with that one?
Let me add something to that too. So whether you homeschool or you go to school, the bottom line is you need resources. So if you're in the public school system, provide the resource that your teachers need. What does that mean? That means if your teacher is having some issues with some subject matter that they want to teach and should teach, and they're getting a lot of pushback from, say, teachers unions, because teachers unions want to push something, 1619 project, and you're like, no, we're not going to do that.
You snuck that right in there, didn't you?
You've got to be able to stand up for those teachers, because those teachers are, they're basically the next parent. How many hours is your kid staying with teachers a week? So they're the individual that is instructing your child how to be an adult. So you got to back that person up.
That's right.
So,
yeah. How about school? How about school boards?
Exactly.
How do we work on school boards?
You know what?
That's where it all starts on local basis.
Harris County has really some of the activists down there in Harris County have been trying so hard, and they've been showing up at the school board meetings. There's Fort Bend ISD. There's a whole bunch of them that, depending on where they are, sometimes they're just allowed to stand outside and protest because people won't
That's
put a
all they
mask
can
on
do,
just to go in. And
wow.
sometimes they have to put a mask on if they want to get in there and be able to speak. But it's made a difference. There's ISDs that have opened up. And Magnolia, I think they're going to let the kids go back to school without masks on. I'm a little bit, I don't want to be negative, but I'm a little bit disappointed in the reaction in Montgomery County, because we've tried to set up different events to go to these school board meetings on my little Facebook group, Fear Free Montgomery, and maybe get like 2 or 3 people to show up. And that, you can get 10 parents at a school board meeting. That is enough to
make a difference.
Go, there is concern here, because there's so much apathy. If 10 people show up, that's a big, big deal. And I wish we could get more people to just realize how much power just a few of us have if we will all take that time and work together and make it happen.
And school board, we need solid school board members who want to focus on resourcing the students, resourcing the teachers, and giving the teachers the freedom to teach.
Yeah.
To actually teach.
Yeah. Move away from teachers unions, move away from teachers associations that push the propagandized stuff, and really push the teachers for their independence. I mean, teachers are super smart.
They are. And most teachers don't get into teaching to be millionaires.
No.
Okay? Let's be honest. I mean, teachers get into teaching because they love children, and they love the fact that they can help influence these kids to be productive citizens in this great country of ours.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be honest, there was a time when teachers were at the highest rank of being respected in our country.
Yeah.
Okay? I want to see them back at that level, because I think they're that important to our society.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other part of that is, too, that you can pay a teacher however much money. They also have to be in that. They have to have the heart to be in that profession.
Absolutely.
I think most of them do.
Absolutely.
You do have some that get wiped out a little bit. They get the backlash so much that they're just like all done. But we've got to get those teachers back engaged, inject life back into those teachers, because teachers are very, very, very important. And that's the thing to take away here, I think, is teachers are incredibly important. Whether you're homeschooling your mom, you're still a teacher. Dad, same thing. And then also the teachers at school, they're teaching your kid, you've got to empower them.
Right. Absolutely.
So
there's no doubt. And we need to teach our kids that the Constitution matters.
Yeah.
And we need to teach our kids that people matter.
That all people matter.
That all people matter. This critical race theory trash that's permeating our culture is destroying our children.
It really is.
It's destroying our culture.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. It's creating. as if we were not divided enough.
Right.
Children should, not only are these very small children dealing with this fear of germs and all this stuff, they're also full of guilt that they should never feel, those little kids. And, the increase in depression and suicidal thoughts, especially among little kids, like kids under the age of 10 that you wouldn't even think should have any, even in the back of their mind, these thoughts, is unbelievable since last year. And I don't know why they're not talking about it more. You do see occasionally an article, but this should be the front page of every day's newspaper until something is done about it, because we're raising a whole generation of depressed, somewhat suicidal, isolated children who hate themselves. It's awful.
Yeah. Right. We have a segment that's going to be talking about media and their role in this type of stuff. So we'll be talking about that on another episode. So,
well, I think we're coming up on the end of our time, but I think we just have to throw this in. I want to throw this in real quick before we go. Children, moms, dads, America, politics, all these things that come into play. All right. And what are we focusing on right now so much? We're creating theorems and theories and conversations, and we want to say, you aren't important anymore because of what you look like.
Right.
Exactly.
You aren't important because your dad doesn't make enough money. We've created all these scenarios, and we've broken each other and our society. We've broken it into all these little pots of people, elitists, poor people. And you know what? The best way for this country to get strong again was for me to see you as who you are.
Yeah.
We call it character.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King, when he walked and he gave his great speech, he was about not seeing the outer edges, but seeing the inner heart.
What's inside you.
And I believe that that's really where we need to be as a culture. We need to help our kids see that. And moms and dads need to be all about finding their character.
Education isn't just about knowledge. It's actually about building the person. Right now, part of education is to build a strong foundation. And you know what education is? It's actually learning from failure. That's what a lot of folks don't quite understand is the real way of learning, most of the time, 90% of the learning is going to come from failure, which means you actually have to go out and do something. The light bulb wasn't invented the first time. It took many, many, many times to invent the light bulb. Education is being able to learn how to do the deductive analysis to get to the point to where you can create that light bulb. Failure is okay.
Yeah.
That's what needs to, and people need to understand that. Just learn from those failures.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Justin, I think we've had a great show. Angela, thank you so much for coming and being a part of it. I think we've discussed a lot of things today, and hopefully we've energized some thought.
Yeah.
And folks, it's been great being with you today. And we just want to remind you that Muckraker is all about having positive conversations, looking at multiple perspectives, and just having the freedom and the willingness to talk to people about issues that actually affect you, your children, your family, your church, and the people and the places that you work. Every week, we're going to come to you direct from Montgomery County, and we're going to talk about different subjects. At the end of this broadcast, you'll find a screen that will give you an email address. We encourage anyone and everyone to go to this email, send us your messages, send us your notes, and if you've got a specific topic you want us to talk about, we'd love for you to let us know what it is. Feel free to say, Billy Graff, you are crazy. Feel free to say that. We already know Justin is. You don't have to say that about Justin. And so, but please, tap into our email address. Tell us what you think. Tell us how the show's going. Great issues, we want to know what they are. Topics, we want to touch your heart, because at Muckraker, we're all about life, liberty, and hope. God bless.
You got to start now. If you don't know where to go, this is the first place you can go to.